3 years ago on the Owyhee River, I noticed these pale morning duns hatching, and they had a trailing shuck attached to them in its entirety. They were emerging from this shuck. And it wasn't just a bunch of loose antron fibers. It was actually a tube hanging on to the abdomen. I mean, it was crawling out of this tube. So I was thinking, well, what can I do to imitate this? Well, I started playing around with it. And I came up with this fly. So if you notice that there's a tube here, you can see the difference. It's not just a bunch of loose antron fibers. So then I started playing around with methods of mass producing these things. So I devised a means to make multiple trailing shucks production-wise. So what I do, I don't know if you can see this. Can you see? I've got to get this camera dialed in. But what I do is I take a piece of 6X and I tie a triple surgeon's knot. And then I take this and I put this over here. And I rest it. So I have about 6 or 7 or 8 pre-made triple surgeon's loop on my vise. So I'm going to tie on a hank of antron on this hook. Well, come on, baby. And then I will take this thread and I'm going to put a little wax on it. I wax this thread so I can tie another triple surgeon's knot and attach it to this end. Can you see what you can't see what I'm doing, can you? Okay, so I've tied a triple surgeon's loop on my thread. And I'm going to take it on my antron, and I'm going to move it down here. I'm going to cinch it and rest it. Then I take my 6X loops, and I put it on the antron and tighten it. So I will do that. And then I'm manufacturing these little trailing shucks. Okay? So instead of going through this whole thing, I've shown you what I've done. And then I'm going to tie a trailing shuck pale morning dun. So I just start off with a size 16 hook, which I thought I had right here. And I use a lot of 16-aught Vivas thread. It's a strong thread. It's fine. It adds no bulk to the fly. And I just start a little bit behind the eye. And I advance my thread all the way to the bend of the hook and back, so when I tie on my Antron shuck, it doesn't slip around. So I don't want this shuck to be too terribly long. I only want it past the bend of the hook a little bit.
What size is that?
Size 16. You can make these in 18s too. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this end, these loose fibers, and make a tail. And then I will drop a little bit of glue on the knot so it will never come apart. So then I'm going to advance my thread slightly, and I'm going to invert my vise, and I'm going to take a little piece of, this is 3/0 silk thread. It's called pinky brown. It's a YLI silk thread. You have to get it online. Most sewing shops don't carry it, but they have a variety of colors, and they're a greater variation than Pearsall's. But it's the same size as Pearsall's gossamer silk. And I'm going to use this for my rib, okay? Then for the dubbing on the abdomen, I'm going to use a super fine pink Cahill thread. Pink Cahill dubbing. I'm going to rib it with this thread. And for a wing, I'm using Canada Goose CDC, which is you can't buy this stuff. You have to know people who hunt geese, and then you have to either pluck them yourself or have them pluck them for you, and then you have a big bag of stuff. And I will sit in my easy chair in the morning and have a cup of coffee, and I will match them, and I'll pair them up and tape them, okay? So this is going to be my wing. So I've taped them to where the concave points meet. The feathers are like this rather than this way. Okay, they're not this way, they're this way. And I preen the feathers to where it's the right length. And then I will clip it. I always clip the excess off prior to tying it on the hook, because when I first started doing it, if I had a bunch of loose stuff in front, I frequently would cut my thread and then I'd have to start all over again. So this 16-aught Vivus is not a multi-fibered thing like, I don't know, what do they call it? That stuff that you can split and put stuff in and do stuff. But this grips this CDC like crazy, and it will not, the wing will never pull out. So normally on mayflies, the abdomen is a little bit lighter in color than the thorax. So for the thorax, I'm going to use this stuff. Nature's, where am I here? Nature's Spirit Hendrickson Natural Wool Dubbing. And I just use a little bit. I don't use a whole lot. So maybe about this much. Then I will pull the wing back, and I'll dub this to behind it to elevate the wing. And then I will put a little dubbing in front. And whip finish it. Put a little glue on there, and you got a good fly. Okay, can you see that? You can also spread these little fibers on each side to make legs. It's a deadly fly. When the mayflies start to emerge and they're stuck in the surface film and they're trying to get out, this trailing shuck is there. It's clearly on them. In fact, I even see them flying around sometimes with them still connected. And during that time, this fly is really, we've caught hundreds of fish on the Owyhee with this fly. Okay, the next one I want to do is a paraloop or a hackle stacker. And I'm going to tie it on a 16. And I'm going to tie a pink hackle stacker. I'm just making a thread base, and then I will take a wood duck flank feather and I preen the back. I preen it back to where I just have about this much, and that'll be my tail. So I always take a pair of tweezers and preen it to where they're all together tightly, and then I tie it on the top. And then if it's too long, which it is, I can just adjust it slightly. I'm going to rib this again with this pinky brown thread. I always like a little contrast in my abdomen, just to kind of imitate the segments. And this is super fine pink Cahill dubbing. Then I'm going to rivet. Oh, but what I want to do first of all, I tied this thread on the bottom, so I'm going to bring it underneath the tail, and then I'm going to elevate it. So I made a tool for my Norvise. I made a gallows. Because after playing around with making hackle stackers, I discovered that if I had too great a distance, then I had too much slack in my thread and it was screwed up, okay? I didn't like it. So I just go up to my eye once. I go up to it again once, twice, around the shank and around the thread, and drop it. Now I've experimented with these things for a long time, and the only hackle that really works consistently well, and I hope it does, are long saddle hackles. They have to be really long, fine, flexible saddle hackles, because if you use one off a neck, unless they're soaked, they will almost always break. So I just strip a little bit of the stem. I tie it on the base, right at the thread. And I'm going to start winding it up and back, down. And I want to make sure I have enough hackle above the hook that when I fold it over, it's going to completely cover everything. So I just wrap this around. And back down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch this, and I'm going to take this little tool I made. I'm going to take my loop, take this hook out of the vise, move my gallows out of the way, put the hook back in the vise, and get this hackle, this stacked hackle, behind me. And then I take my darker dubbing, which is this Hendrickson wool dubbing from Nature's Spirit.
Yeah, you gotta be back with it.
Then I will take this gizmo and I will twist it. And I will fold it over and I will have a little loop on top, like so. You see that? And then I will draw this tight over the loop, over the thorax. And then I hold my thread tight, and I bring back my thread, and I wrap over it again. Because if you don't, your hackle stacker is going to come apart. And I'll put a little bit of glue on here. I kind of like this trout hunter stuff. It's pretty good. It's water-based. Can you see it? Trout hunter. It's pretty good stuff. It's water soluble. It's easy to work with. Put a little glue on there. And that's just a pink paralube. That's all it is. Are we groovy now?
Stop saying groovy, it makes you sound like a hippie.
I am a hippie. Just like that guy in Island Park. Okay, is anybody familiar with what a Wally wing is? A Wally wing mayfly? These wings are made out of a single mallard flank feather. You can use all kinds of feathers. Mallard, wood duck, goose. If you have a long CDC goose feather, you can use that. And I started tying these this winter because I saw on the internet, Googling Calabatus spinners, there was a thing that came up on Pinterest that had a Calabatus Wally wing spinner, and I thought that was really cool. So then I Googled around and I found how to do this. And I'm going to tie one of those for you. So you start at the eye and you make a thread base, maybe a third of the way towards the bend of the hook. And then I will advance my thread forward to slightly behind the eye. So here's a mallard flank feather, and you simply draw these back like so. Oh, you can't see it. I gotta pay attention here. Okay, you do that, and then you invert this, and you preen them back to where you have this situation. Now, if you've gone to this much trouble, you want to make sure it works out right. So the best thing to do is to soak them. So then you take one fiber on either side, the closest, and watch this. You just draw this down, and you have a wing. So I'll just add a tail of wood duck. And once you get this wood duck tip taken out, you can just continually making successive tails. So you have this, and then I'm just going to preen them back, tie it on, adjust the length of the tail with my tweezers. Put my silk thread ribbing on there. Put my dubbing on for my abdomen. I need just a little more. Bring my thread underneath my tail, draw it tight, elevate it, and make my rib.
What do you need?
Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish it with a paraloop. So this is a Wally winged Hackle stacker paraloop pink.
That's all right. We'll get together. I'll either come over and pick it up.
Then I'm going to put a little more dubbing on here. Put it behind the wing. And then I'm going to make the wing stand up and put some dubbing in front of it to keep it kind of elevated. Come on, get away. And that's a Wally Wing Paraloop Hackle Stacker Pink Mayfly.
How many fish will that wing hold together for you on the Wally wing?
That's a good question. If I were guiding somebody and they wouldn't eat the normal fare, and I put that thing on, and a fish came up and ate it and ripped it apart, I wouldn't care. Okay? If it could be a one-fish fly, I don't know. They're more durable, I know for a fact, than a standard no hackle with mallard quill. Okay? They're really actually pretty durable. You'd be surprised. But like I said, I don't care. If I catch a fish, I'm happy. This fly is called a bareback rider. I guided on the South Fork of the Snake for 30 years and came up with this fly. And when the golden stones are out, I really think they think it's real. They eat it like mad. Okay, and if you notice that I'm tying this on a jig hook, and there was a book published, I don't know how many years ago, 40 years ago, by a guy named Datus Proper, and the title of the book is What Does a Trout See? And I used to capture these golden stones and show kids, and I'd say, what do you see? They say, well, look at those legs. Okay? Look how long that wing is in back of its abdomen. behind its abdomen. And I believe that legs that are anatomically placed correctly on the fly make a difference. Now, Chernobyl ants with the legs fore and aft work. If you twitch them, and we all know they work great. But on the South Fork of the Snake, that thing has more traffic than any other river in Idaho. It is fished thousands and thousands of rod days a year. So when these golden stones are out and the salmon flies are out like this guy, if you have legs that are placed like legs, that look like a bug, I believe it makes a difference. So I'm going to put this jig hook in here. I got to change my thread. So I need to make a thread base completely down the shank of this hook. A friend of mine, this is one of his favorite flies. He has his own TV show now. He's now globally famous, and his phrase was, tie on a bareback rider and let her buck, which I thought was kind of fun. So you can use all kinds of dubbing. Doesn't really matter. I happen to like ice dub golden brown. That seems to be a pretty good dubbing for this. And I'm going to start in the rear, and then I'm going to go to the head and come back to the halfway point on this hook. So I'm resting my thread halfway. Now if you look at a golden stone, you will notice if you take a ruler out and look at it and measure it, you will find that the hind legs are closer to the end of the bug than they are to the head. This is why all these commercial flies I see bug me, because their legs are so far crowded towards the head. But the legs, if you space them accurately, they look more like the insect. So what I do is I get 3mm brown craft foam, and I will tie it on top, right in the middle of the hook, and I will just start working my way back. And then I'm going to tie this off. Then I start halfway between this first section and the bend of the hook. And then I'm going to tie this off one more time. So I'm going to cut my head kind of in a square shape because golden stoneflies have big heads. Now the other thing is that people don't always know, on the snake for instance, there are at least two broods of two species of larger golden stones. There's a hatch that comes out a little bit after the salmon fly hatch in July, and the males are 2/3 the length of the females. The stonefly that hatches the end of September is Clausenia sabulosa. The males do not fly. They're like a squalla. The males have, the term is brachypterous, but they never develop wings to fly. But the females do. And in both species, the males are always smaller than the female. So you can get away with a little bit smaller bug than most anglers fish and have greater success. So I'm going to start again right at the halfway point. There's a product out there called Perfect Rubber. It's a Hedron product, and I believe I think it's 100% silicone, although I'm not so sure. But what I like about it, instead of just plain old rubber legs off a strip that you peel off, I knot my legs, and this particular material enables me to knot legs better than any other rubber I can find. So this is kind of a trick for me that I developed, I think, but I want to put a knot in them. So I'm going to go under and over, under the rubber and over. And I'm just going to manipulate this to where these hind legs stick towards the rear. You see that? And you can kind of play with these to get just the right amount of angle. And then you can super glue them, the knots, and they won't ever go anywhere. Whoa, lost my glue. I got it. So on this side, I go over and under. It's just the opposite. It's just bilateral symmetry. That's all I'm looking for.
Super glue doesn't hurt that stuff?
What?
Super glue doesn't hurt that stuff?
That's the magic of perfect rubber.
It doesn't hurt.
You know, you can take, what do they call it? Sexy floss. You know, and that stuff's cool to work with, but hardly any of the stuff you get is straight. Okay? So you can put that on and tighten it in a way to where it's kind of perpendicular to your fly. And if you put a piece of, if you put a little bit of flex cement on one side, if you put a little flex cement on this side, it'll bend it this way.
I believe that.
Okay? But with perfect rubber, it won't bend. I mean, it's cool stuff. So there you have your back legs. This is Alaska brown bear. Okay? I used to, in my early career, I used to get Alaska brown bear from a taxidermist in Boise, and then he quit doing bears, and then I had to find a source. So I called, in the days when you could go to the library and look at a book of yellow pages, you know, I looked in the yellow pages in the Anchorage area and just cold called taxidermists. And he said, no, we can't send you any bear parts because it's illegal. You cannot buy or sell bear parts in Alaska. He said, but if you want to go to the fur rendezvous in February, you can buy them green and I'll tan them for you. So I go, well, okay. So I got somebody to back me, and I flew up to Anchorage, and I went to the fur rendezvous, and they had, I don't know, like 75 green bear hides lying all over the snow. And, you know, people were wearing coonskin caps and mucklucks, and it was weird. But I bought 5 bear hides, and I had them tanned. And I sold most of it. I learned a good lesson because hardly any of it was as good as this. And it's really super coarse, super dense, and super kinky. And it makes if you hold this, if you backlight this stuff, it is so much like a natural stonefly wing when it's fluttering. Deer hair is nothing like it. Synthetics don't float like it. This stuff is magic. The thing is about this stuff is that you have to clip it at the hide, and it works absolutely opposite of deer hair. You can't stack this stuff, and so you have to take all these little these long guard hairs out. And then you take a little comb and you comb out all the fluff. Kinky. So since bear hair isn't hollow, it's imperative that you super glue it to your thread or it will pull right out. It's slick. So I got to put a little glue on here. Now that won't ever come out. Okay, so I'm going to take 2 more pieces of perfect rubber that will form both legs, the middle leg and the front leg.
Where do you get the perfect rubber?
Most fly shops carry perfect rubber,
Do they?
but not all of them. Kind of a lot of trouble for a fly, huh? Okay, so I'm gonna knot these guys, and I'm gonna make both of these legs angled forward. They're gonna bend forward. See, I can kind of manipulate them, you know, to get the leg to be a right angle. I mean, at the right position. So you see this one's just a little bit too far up. I can do that. Look, it's right in the right position. I can super glue it and it stays put.
Dan, is that a hairline product?
It is. That's a bareback rider right there.
Very good.
I guess that's it, huh? 7?
Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome. We get her? Okay. Perfect.
Do you like using this better than the straight one?
I use it both.